Welcome back to our channel for another deep dive into the turbulent lives of Genoa City's elite. Today, we explore a devastating chain reaction of ambition and ruin that threatens to shatter an entire family. The intoxicating allure of vengeance has always been a dangerous narcotic for Billy Abbott, a man whose entire existence is frequently defined by a desperate need to outmaneuver his historical demons. His current crusade against Victor Newman has evolved from a mere corporate skirmish into an all-consuming psychological obsession, blinding him to the fragile ecosystem of lives surrounding him. Billy operates under the delusion that his war is righteous, a necessary evil to secure his legacy and protect his family from the Newman patriarch's encroaching shadows. However, this tunnel vision has entirely stripped him of his situational awareness, transforming him from a protective figure into a reckless agent of chaos. Every calculated move he makes against Victor is fueled by decades of perceived inadequacies and a burning desire to prove his superiority, leaving him tragically oblivious to the collateral damage mounting in his wake. The catastrophe began with a seemingly brilliant tactical maneuver designed to destabilize Newman Enterprises. Billy, operating in the murky shadows of corporate espionage, orchestrated the release of highly sensitive, unverified financial data intended to trigger a sudden panic among Victor's investors. It was meant to be a surgical strike, a precise blow that would force Victor into a defensive posture. Instead, the leaked information acted as a volatile contagion within the broader financial markets, sparking a wave of algorithmic selling that rippled far beyond the Newman empire. Billy failed to anticipate the interconnected vulnerabilities of the market, entirely underestimating how a targeted rumor could mutate into a widespread panic. This reckless gamble, executed without the counsel or oversight of his family, unleashed a financial shockwave that indiscriminately decimated the portfolios of countless entities, proving once again that Billy's impulsive ambition always outpaces his strategic foresight. The most tragic victim of this financial tsunami was not the towering monolith of Newman Enterprises, but the fragile, ascending enterprise of Spectra Charles. Sally Spectra had poured her entire soul into building her company, viewing it as a testament to her resilience and a secure foundation for her unborn child. When the market reacted to Billy's leaked intelligence, the resulting volatility struck Spectra Charles with devastating precision. Investors, spooked by the sudden instability in the media and tech sectors, rapidly divested, causing the company's stock to plummet into a terrifying freefall. The cruelest irony of this collapse was its architect. Billy, the man who had originally gifted the foundation of this company to Sally, was now the unseen hand tearing it apart. The financial ruin was absolute and immediate, erasing months of Sally's relentless hard work and plunging her into a state of acute, suffocating panic as she watched her legacy evaporate on the trading screens. Long before the stock market plummeted, Sally's psychological state was already resting on a razor's edge. The impending birth of her child with Billy was supposed to be a beacon of hope, but it was heavily shadowed by the agonizing, unresolved trauma of losing her first baby, Ava. Every twinge, every moment of stress, triggered a visceral terror that history was preparing to repeat its cruelest chapter. Furthermore, Sally had been enduring an unrelenting campaign of intimidation from Victor Newman, who sought to leverage her vulnerabilities to reclaim his dominance over the media landscape. She had been fighting a two-front war, battling the Newman patriarch's external pressures while desperately trying to maintain a serene internal environment for her pregnancy. Billy's escalating vendetta had only compounded her anxieties, leaving her feeling profoundly isolated in a relationship that was supposed to be her ultimate sanctuary. When the catastrophic news of the Spectra Charles stock collapse finally reached Sally, the psychological blow instantly manifested into a severe physical crisis. The sheer magnitude of the financial ruin, combined with the chronic, crushing weight of Victor's ongoing harassment, overwhelmed her nervous system entirely. The panic attack was not merely emotional, it was a violent physiological rebellion. A sudden, agonizing pain ripped through her abdomen, stealing her breath and sending a shockwave of absolute terror through her entire being. The world around her dissolved into a blur of dizzying fear as the undeniable symptoms of severe pregnancy complications took hold. The agonizing rush to the emergency room was a nightmare of flashing lights and sterile sirens, with Sally trapped in a suffocating spiral of dread. convinced that the toxic corporate warfare of Genoa City was about to claim the life of another innocent child. Within the cold, unforgiving walls of the hospital, Sally was plunged into a sterile purgatory of beeping monitors and hushed medical assessments. The clinical environment offered no comfort, only a stark reminder of the fragile line between life and death. Lying in the hospital bed, tethered to intravenous lines and fetal monitors, Sally experienced a profound, crushing isolation. The physical pain of her complications was entirely eclipsed by the emotional agony of her realization. She understood, with chilling clarity, that the stress threatening her baby was not an act of random fate, but the direct consequence of the environment she had allowed herself to remain in. The devastating truth that her partner's reckless vendetta had catalyzed this medical emergency began to crystallize in her mind, replacing her fear with a deep, mournful betrayal. The news of Sally's sudden hospitalization sent immediate shockwaves through the Abbott family, prompting Jack Abbott to abandon his corporate duties and rush to the medical facility. Jack, ever the fiercely protective patriarch, viewed Sally not just as his brother's partner, but as the mother of the next generation of his family. His arrival at the hospital was driven by a deep, genuine concern for her well-being and a desperate need to ensure the survival of the unborn child. Jack's historical role as the family's ultimate caretaker kicked into high gear, his mind racing through potential medical interventions and support systems he could mobilize. He approached Sally's room with a heavy heart, prepared to offer the unwavering support of the Abbott dynasty, entirely unaware of the dark, convoluted truth waiting for him behind the hospital doors. It was in the quiet, tense atmosphere of the hospital corridor that Jack uncovered the horrifying reality of the situation. Through hushed conversations with financial analysts and tearful admissions from Sally's associates, the intricate web of cause and effect was laid bare. Jack realized that the sudden collapse of Spectra Charles, the catalyst for Sally's life-threatening medical crisis, was directly triggered by the market manipulation orchestrated by his own brother. The realization hit Jack with the force of a physical blow. The narrative shifted instantly from a tragic medical emergency to a catastrophic injury inflicted by friendly fire. Jack's profound worry for Sally rapidly transmuted into an absolute, glacial fury directed entirely at Billy. Decades of covering up his brother's impulsive mistakes, of offering endless second chances, coalesced into a singular moment of unbearable disgust and righteous anger. Leaving the hospital, Jack's demeanor underwent a terrifying transformation. The diplomatic, measured patriarch of Jabot Cosmetics vanished, replaced by a man consumed by a predatory focus. His march through the streets of Genoa City was fueled by a potent mixture of adrenaline and heartbreak. He was not merely seeking out a business rival, he was hunting down a profound disappointment. Every step Jack took was heavy, with the exhausting history of Billy's self-destruction, the endless cycle of apologies and relapses that had defined their brotherhood. This time, however, the collateral damage was not a bank account or a corporate merger, it was the life of an innocent woman and an unborn child. Jack's internal monologue was a chaotic storm of recriminations, solidifying his resolve to deliver a consequence that Billy could not charm or manipulate his way out of. Jack finally located Billy in a highly public, sophisticated setting, likely basking in the false glory of his perceived tactical victory over the Newman Empire. Billy, completely insulated by his own arrogance, was holding court, oblivious to the human tragedy unfolding across town. The stark contrast between Billy's smug satisfaction and the sterile horror of Sally's hospital room pushed Jack past the point of no return. As Jack approached, the ambient noise of the room seemed to fade into a tense, suffocating silence. Observers intuitively sensed the dangerous shift in the atmospheric pressure, recognizing the lethal intensity radiating from the elder Abbott. Billy, catching sight of his brother, offered a confident, entirely misplaced greeting, utterly blind to the executioner standing before him. The physical confrontation was sudden, brutal, and entirely devoid of theatrical hesitation. Without uttering a single word of warning, Jack drew back his hand and delivered a devastating, open-palmed slap directly across Billy's face. The sharp, violent crack of the impact echoed through the opulent room, instantly freezing every patron in place. The physical force of the blow was significant, snapping Billy's head to the side and leaving a stark, crimson handprint blooming across his cheek. But the emotional impact was apocalyptic. For Jack Abbott, a man who prided himself on control and elegance, to resort to public physical violence was a testament to the absolute shattering of his patience. The slap was a physical manifestation of decades of accumulated grief, a desperate, violent attempt to shock Billy out of his toxic narcissism. The silence that followed the strike was shattered by Jack's voice, which trembled with a terrifying suppressed rage. He delivered a verbal evisceration with chilling, measured precision, stripping away every layer of Billy's self-righteous justification. Jack laid bare the horrifying truth of Billy's actions, explicitly connecting his reckless corporate sabotage to the critical medical emergency currently threatening Sally and his unborn child. He accused Billy of becoming the very monster he claimed to be fighting, entirely willing to sacrifice innocent lives on the altar of his petty vengeance against Victor Newman. With unwavering authority, Jack demanded the absolute and immediate cessation of all retaliatory plots, making it abundantly clear that Billy had crossed a sacred, unforgivable line. The demand was not a negotiation. It was a final, desperate ultimatum from a patriarch who could no longer tolerate the poison infecting his family. The aftermath of the confrontation left Billy in a state of profound psychological freefall. The stinging heat on his cheek was nothing compared to the icy dread flooding his veins as Jack's words dismantled his entire reality. The righteous armor of his crusade against the Newmans instantly crumbled, leaving him exposed to the horrifying truth of his own destructive nature. The realization that his desperate need to win a corporate game had physically endangered the woman he loved, and the child he desperately wanted struck him with paralyzing force. Billy's breath hitched as the magnitude of his failure settled over him, his mind flashing with terrifying images of Sally lying helpless in a hospital bed. The arrogant tactician died in that moment, replaced by a broken man drowning in a sudden, suffocating ocean of irreversible guilt. As Jack turned and walked away, leaving his brother isolated in the center of the stunned crowd, the true cost of vengeance hung heavily in the air. Billy stood paralyzed, the echoes of the slap still ringing in his ears, completely untethered from the world around him. He stared down at his trembling hands, the hands that had orchestrated the financial leak, realizing they were now stained with an unforgivable betrayal. The chilling reality of his situation offered no comfort, only the terrifying prospect of a future entirely devoid of the love he had so carelessly jeopardized. As the sirens wailed in the distance, a haunting, unanswered question lingered in the cold Genoa City night. Had Billy Abbott's awakening come too late to save the fragile life hanging in the balance, or had his obsession already claimed its ultimate, devastating toll?